Senator this evening grew up in Chicago. Rose up from the factory floor through his ranks of his union to become the Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. Breaking barriers and making history along the way. He's always fighting for workers, and actually earlier today, I was with him at the Columbia College Adjunct Part-Time Faculty Strike Rally and Press Conference. To introduce our next honoree, please welcome Keith Richardson, President of CBTU Chicago and APWU Local 1.
Thank you, Before I introduce Secretary-Treasurer Redmond, I want to recognize some of the previous UATH honorees that's in the room. Katie Jordan, previous inductee, and also Mr. D. Johnson is in the room. Thank you for showing up and giving me walk. Again, Keith Richardson, President of APWU Local 1 here in Chicago, and also the Coalition of Black Trade Unions. It is my honor and privilege to stand here to speak for my friend, Secretary-Treasurer Fred Redmond. When I found out that Brother Redmond was being inducted into the UHH, I didn't wait for a call to say, hey, will you do it? I called them and said, I'm going to do it. Because if anybody was going to induct Fred tonight, it was going to be me. Fred Redmond is the Secretary-Treasurer of the AFL-CIO. On June 13, 2022, he was unanimously elected to the position as the highest-ranking African-American officer in the history of America's labor movement. Secretary-Treasurer Redmond was first elected to the position by the AFL-CIO Executive Council on August 20th, 2021. He filled the vacancy left by the untimely void when President Trump passed away. Then Secretary-Treasurer Liz Shue was elevated to president, and she looked to no other than Mr. Redmond to fill the role as Secretary-Treasurer, as if he didn't have enough to do. He had previously served on the Federation's Executive Council since 2008. And again, Brother Redmond was one of the few people to serve on the AFL-CIO Executive Council, and he was not an international president. They respected him that much, but he served on that board and had input for many years. So that's another feat and accomplishment. Redmond's path to the Federation's second highest office began in 1973, when he went to work at Reynolds Metals Company here in Chicago and became a member of the United Steelworkers, USW. He was active in his local union almost immediately, serving as a shop steward and eventually vice president. He served 3 terms as local president. In 1996, Redmond joined the USW staff, working with local unions in the Chicago area before accepting a position at the International Union's headquarters in Pittsburgh in 1998. For decades, Brother Redmond has served the USW in various staff and leadership roles, assisting local unions, developing and conducting training programs, and bargaining for fair contracts. As International Vice President for Human Affairs, a position to which he was first elected to in 2006, Brother Redmond oversaw the union's Civil and Human Rights Department and worked with USW with the allies across the country and responded to attacks on voting rights and combating economic inequality. Redmond has spent his entire life fighting for racial justice in the workplace and throughout our communities. In 2016, he was appointed to Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf's Advisory Commission on African American Affairs, and in 2020, Redmond was tapped to chair the AFL-CIO Task Force on Racial Justice, a body focused on taking concrete action to address America's long history of racism and police violence against Black people. Thank you. Redmond has served on the board of directors of Work in America, the Trans-Africa Forum, the Workers' Defense League, the National Endowment for Democracy, the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, Interfaith Workers' Justice, and since 2007, he served as chair of the board of directors for the A. Philip Randolph Institute. In 2021, Redmond was elected president of the Trade Union Confederation of the Americas, a prestigious international post. Brother Redmond is one of the preeminent labor leaders in the world, not just the country, in the world. If you travel abroad, if you ask about Black labor leaders, Fred's name is at the top of the list. Thank you, sir, for opening doors, creating space that made it possible for guys like myself, Elijah Edwards, the local ASPE president, Greg Kelly, Stacey Gates, Mac Julian, Elise Foster here in Chicago. He opened doors so we can walk in, so we can assume leadership positions to help our unions and the constituency groups here throughout the country. And we're not all just USW. I'm APWU, the letter carriers, you name it, Fred has helped. He helps everyone. I just want to say again that it's an honor for me to be here to induct Fred. It's a homecoming. He's a Chicago boy. I'm a Chicago guy. And I'm just so happy to be in this space to share this moment with a mentor and a friend. So please, sisters and brothers, stand up and join me and welcome Brother Fred Redmond as he takes his rightful place at the Union Hall of Honor for the American Society.
Wow. Good evening. First of all, I cannot thank Keith Richardson enough for that kind and generous introduction, but most of all, for being such a constant force for workers in Chicago, and more importantly, for being such a good friend. Keith, thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to recognize our leader here in Chicago, Bob Ryder, the president of Chicago Federation of Labor, our Secretary-Treasurer, Don Villar. I want to recognize my leader, my director, the leader of the steelworkers here in Chicago, our director, Mike Millsap. I want to acknowledge our AFL-CIO staff in this area, Jocelyn Woodward, who do a great job on behalf of the Federation. And I'm honored to have my daughter and my son-in-law with me here tonight. Michael and Morgan Morris is here tonight. And to my steelworker family, so many folks in this room who I grew up with, I fought with, I stood with, that my family of steelworkers, I am so humbled and so privileged to be in your presence and to be here tonight. And I'm honored to be inducted into this Hall of Fame along such accomplished individuals as Norma Gaines and Roberta Woods, who have seen such changes in our union, that have made so many changes in our union. They are incredible trailblazers and mentors for so many in what has been a male-dominated organization. So Norma and Roberta, I want to congratulate you for this just honor. Thank you for making our union a much better union. Thank you both very much. And to be honored alongside the great president of our union, President George Becker, it is indeed an honor to have Craig here, George's son. I walked in, I told Craig I did a double back because he looked just like his father. And Craig, thank you. Thank you and your family, your father and Jane, your mother, and everything that you have done, your family, for working family for our union. Thank you very much for being here. Look, I am a proud steelworker. I was born on the South Side. I got my start in the union movement not far from here, down the road at a place called Reynolds Aluminum, local 3911. And it was there that I got to know firsthand the life-changing power of a union job. You see, I saw it first when my father got a job at that same aluminum mill. I saw how it lifted my family out of poverty, how they were able to build a solid middle class. I saw the power of what it means to hold a union card, of working under a contract, the collective bargaining agreement, of linking arms with your sisters and your brothers and siblings for the greater good and for a better life. That job in that mill, it truly changed my life. And it's always good to be back in Chicago, the town where I lived most of my life. And it was George Becker who offered me the job nearly 25 years ago at the Steelworkers International. And I left Chicago and moved to Pittsburgh. And one of my first roles at the Steelworkers International was in the education department. I conducted training sessions with fellow steelworkers and members, and I taught labor history. And I did that work for 4 years for the Steelworkers Education and Membership Development Department. And I really enjoyed that work. I enjoyed it because the labor movement has such a rich history. And Chicago has a rich labor history. It's full of moments like the Haymarket Massacre and that tragic day when steelworkers at Republic Steel went on strike for a 40-hour work week and a fair wage. They were beaten with billy clubs, gunned down, 10 dead, 100 was hospitalized for standing up for the right to a better workplace and for a better life. You know, these events, though they were tragic, they ended up galvanizing the labor movement, both here and around the globe. Moments like that Haymarket are important in our history and in our nation's history. You see, because the fact is, you cannot separate labor history from our nation's history because they're intertwined. The history of the labor movement and the history of our nation, they go together. And I want to thank the Illinois Labor Historical Society and everyone involved in lifting up our history by shining a light on these critical moments of our history. You're not only illuminating the past, you're shining a light on the future. See, by shining a light on the greatest moments in our history and honoring throughout the years labor's most significant leaders, you're shining a light on the path for future generations. You're opening up a space that they can forge and continue to affect change for working people. See, it's truly an honor to be recognized with people like Mother Jones, who once said that we should sit down and read and educate ourselves for the coming conflicts. You see, I agree with Mother Jones, because knowing the history of our labor movement and connecting it to our movement today can help us better prepare for the coming conflicts. It can prepare us to fight harder and to fight smarter. And it's an honor to be recognized in the Illinois Labor History Society with the likes of Eugene Dales, Frank and B. Lumpkin, with Joe Hill, Agnes Newt Nestor, and with a personal friend of mine, A. Philip Randolph. You see, Randolph was an outspoken and fearless advocate for workers at a time when black people were supposed to be quiet. We're supposed to sit down and be fearful. But it was Mr. Randolph who pushed the labor movement to live up to its values, to fight segregation, discrimination, and prejudice of all people, regardless of the color of their skin or who they love, in society and within organized labor itself. Randolph stood up and he criticized the movement that he loved and challenged this movement to open up its doors for fairness, for opportunity, to fight for all workers. It was Mr. Randolph who was a central figure aligning the labor movement with the civil rights movement, and he remains a central figure in the history of the labor movement and of the 20th century. And he is important to me, not only because he's a source of inspiration, but because his work, his courage, is tangible to my life. You see, Randolph forged the path for all of us to follow. He showed us that all workers deserve respect, that all work has dignity. He showed us that a good union job provides dignity and respect, can change lives and lift up a generation. And he showed us, Mr. Randolph, how solidarity and organizing can beat the longest odds. Solidarity, how it can transform what was considered a menial job into a dignified profession. Through solidarity, through the incredible power of collective action. You see, Randolph and the Pullman Porters, they knew that power. The workers at Republic Steel, they knew it too. And America's workers are coming to that realization today. We know a collective bargaining agreement is the single most powerful tool to make sure that all workers are included. It levels the playing field. It makes sure that workplaces are diverse, are accessible. Collective bargaining agreement makes sure that there is equity in hiring practices, equity in pay and advancement opportunities, and that workers gain the skills needed for the jobs of the day and the jobs of tomorrow. Solidarity. It is the foundation of our movement. And every day, America is taking notice of how we are taking a stand against the greedy corporations that made record profits during the pandemic. Think about this. Today, over 70% of the American people support workers. 88% of young people under the age of 30 support this labor movement. And every day, America is finding out that it's the labor movement that is the solution to low wages and unsafe workplaces, to discrimination and growing inequality. And every day, America is taking notice of how we're taking a stand against these corporations that made these record profits. You see, solidarity is our foundation. And I'm talking about true solidarity, the hard kind, where I stand with you when you need me. And when I need you, you stand with me. I'm talking about hard solidarity, where your picket line, is my picket line, where we pick each other up, where we support each other. True solidarity is the strongest thing there is in our movement. It's stronger than hate. It's stronger than fear, and it can't be bought or sold. It's true solidarity that binds us together, no matter where we come from or where we're going, no matter the color of our skin, the language we speak, or our age, or our gender, or our religion. True solidarity is the strength of our human connection, and with that strength, we, as a labor movement, can overcome the longest odds. Solidarity works. We stand together, we march together, we fight together. And that's what this labor movement is all about. Brothers and sisters, that's our history, that's our legacy, a legacy that we must carry forward. We must march, we must fight, we must keep winning, and we must continue to demand a society that works for all, a society that is fair, a society that is just, and we must continue to stand together for a future that works for all of us, because I believe that one day our children and our grandchildren, they're going to hold us accountable on how we responded at this moment. And I believe, brothers, as long as we march in solidarity, as long as we continue to lift each other up, there's no force in this country that can defeat a powerful labor movement grounded in the solidarity and the love for each other. Thank you, brothers and sisters.